Just a couple of things. We mentioned Micah Hudson. Also, Julian Humphrey from Georgia committed to A&M over the weekend. Those are two nice gets for them. I don't know if, again, like you just mentioned before the break, I'm not sure what the deal was with Micah Hudson at Tech and why it didn't work out. But for A&M to land him is big for them because they needed a wide receiver badly with multiple years of eligibility. And getting Julian Humphrey, who was a 10-game starter for Georgia, a nice little weekend haul for them.
Yeah, I mean, that was a couple of good pickups, and I know they had other visitors as well, and they are looking to add a bit more to the stock pile, but I think you're pretty happy with what you saw this past weekend. I know Nick Anderson from Oklahoma was another guy, and that's one thing that's been kind of I guess was certainly alarming this year with A&M, and I know health played into it. They just had a stunning lack of playmakers. Like, they just didn't have dudes, and they've recruited really well, but you see some of the attrition that's taken place and just the Jimbo era and kind of how topsy-turvy hitting on some of those guys was. A lot of misses sort of added up, and so, yeah, they definitely needed to go in and add some ammunition on offense, and I think that they're in the process of doing that. But also, on the defensive side of the ball as well, mentioning Julian Humphrey coming over from Georgia, so that's a big addition for the secondary, which, you love what they're going to be doing defensively with Mike Elko, but offensively, you have your young quarterback there in Marcel Reed. You went and got your backup now in Jacob Zeno, and you have Le'Veon Moss, and now you need to go get some receivers. And so I'm very curious how the Micah Hudson time goes, because it was so forgettable and so brief there in Lubbock. I mean, that was such a huge deal for Texas Tech to land him. I mean, it was almost like, well, it wasn't almost like the announcement ended up carrying more weight than his actual time in Lubbock. It actually went farther than his time in Lubbock. Like, they got more attention for him committing than they got for anything he actually did on the field in the less than a year that he was there. And there were the murmurs about, was he working hard enough? There was Joey McGuire just flat out saying, like, look, we've got these great receivers here. To all due respect to Micah Hudson, but he's a true freshman, and we got guys that are like Josh Kelly, who are grown-ass men that are like playing well right now, and Coy Aiken, and you can go down the list. So it wasn't a matter of like they didn't have anybody and like he's not playing still. It's like, no, they had guys. That was part of the problem. I think, though, being a five-star guy, you just expect him to come in there and play right away. And in hindsight, if you're managing a five-star guy, maybe that's something you could have done differently. I don't know, but whatever it was, a work thing or a depth thing or a talent thing or whatever it was, Micah Hudson's now going to College Station, and we'll see. Because if he doesn't crack the starting lineup there and he doesn't play a whole bunch next year, then guess who that's going to look bad on? Micah Hudson, and Micah Hudson only. But if he comes out there and breaks out and goes crazy, well, then there's the talent that we expected him to be. And then, we can figure out how that pertains to his freshman year in Lubbock. But I don't think Tech did anything wrong. It was just a situation that didn't work out for either party. So they have moved on. He moves on, and he moves on to College Station, which is a bit closer to home. I will say that half an hour, or an hour and a half drive versus the 5.5 hour drive, like, that matters, man. Not for everybody. Some guys are like, get me as far away from home as possible, but for some people it does, and maybe that ends up mattering, the 4 hour less drive that you'll be taking on certain weekends. But a change of scenery should do him good, and let's hope that it maximizes that talent that we all know is there.
I said this last week about Lubbock, Craig, and I know that, like, there are going to be coaches like, you don't want to go way out there, or it's so far. Look, your location is either going to matter to you or it's not. Like, if it's something that's going to matter to you, then don't take visits places that are going to be far away. But it's hard for kids to know. But as far as it comes to Micah Hudson and anyone else, like, when you're in the portal and you're like, all those decisions you have to make, whatever, is good for you. I think it's funny to watch everybody. All of College Station's excited. All of Lubbock is pretty much, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you, because that's just the emotions of it.
Sure.
And really, the only time in anyone's career where you can't really dive deep into are they worth the hype is that true freshman season. Like, your true freshman, okay. But once you started playing and logged, like, actual game reps, like a lot of game reps, which he didn't. And part of it was because Tech was really deep at wide receiver. They had good players that were veteran players that were more ready to go than he was. I mean, and he battled some injuries through spring. I mean, he didn't practice in the spring. He hardly practiced in the fall. Yeah. So practice means something, and getting those reps means something, and hopefully he'll be able to get more of them with A&M in the lead up to the season next year than he did with Tech. But I think more than anything, that had to do with it and not any kind of thing that's like, you know, nefarious or
he's not a bad guy or anything like that. It's just wasn't ready.
Just wasn't ready, and injuries played a part in it. He decided to go somewhere else. He wanted to be somewhere else. It's just that easy.